What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the Pedal and Pivot podcast. I'm your host, Jordan, and I'm so sorry that there was no new episode. 2 weeks ago, I just started medical school. As many of you know, if you listen to my medical school advice episode, I just had my first exam 2 days ago. I'm recording this on a Wednesday, and my exam was on Monday. I have another one the following Monday. So things are just getting really busy, and I didn't have time to record an episode. I'm still getting into a routine, but I promise I will not leave you guys stranded. I'll try to keep you guys updated on my social media if I'm not able to post or anything like that, but I might be a little more inconsistent, but I'm going to do my best to keep producing episodes because I really love having this creative aspect of creating content for social media and making these episodes. So it's something that I hope to keep up throughout the years because I think it's important to have that balance between things that you enjoy and also your work life. Today's episode is going to be about college advice because it is August, so it's back to school season. If you are around that age, you are probably starting college in a few weeks or you just started, so this episode is perfect timing. I'm also hoping to create some content around this as well so that if you want short form, you get it like that as well. I'm going to be talking about some study tips, organization, friendship, self-care, routines, and finding your purpose. So if that's of interest to you, be sure to stay tuned. I'm just going to get into a little catch-up moment because, podcasts are meant for yapping, so got to keep you guys updated. As I said, I just finished my first exam of medical school. It was anatomy and biology. It wasn't too bad. I think that my master's degree definitely helped me to adjust more quickly to medical school. I am looking forward to just solidifying my routine because as someone with ADHD, routines are very important to me, and it's the only way that I'm able to get things done. So as I solidify that routine, I'll become more efficient at things and I'll be able to manage my time better overall. I am making friends in medical school. I'm so excited about that. I didn't really make a lot of friends last year because my classes were online for my second year of my master's, but I have been able to connect with some of my classmates. A couple girls and I went to brunch after our exam on Monday. We went to yoga Lattes together a couple weeks ago. I went to a pool party with a small group of my classmates. So it's just been nice to have that interaction once again because I really was missing it last year. I'm also trying to keep up with my friends outside of medical school. So my cousin just moved down here. I went to lunch with her and her dad the other day, so I'm hoping to get together with her as much as I can, and then my other friends outside of medical school, hoping to keep up with those as well. Reading wise, I was halfway through The Wedding People. I don't remember who the author is, but I am only halfway through because my hold was up on Libby, so I wasn't able to finish it, and I forgot about the airplane mode trick, so I wasn't able to use that, and I didn't want to buy the book because it's about a 3-star for me right now, so I don't really want to own that book and pay for it if I don't have to. So I returned that, but I just got it back, so I'll be finishing that within the next couple weeks. I'm currently reading Same Time Next Summer. It's okay. It's also about a 3-star. I remember to use the airplane mode hack on my Kindle so that I'm able to finish reading it without buying it because I don't really want to buy it. It just kind of gave me the ick because basically there's this girl who's 30 years old and she had a relationship with this guy when she was 16 and they broke up, and then later we find out the reason that they broke up was a little complicated. So I have a little grace for her there, but I also feel like if you're 30 years old and you're moving on with your life, you still shouldn't be hung up on someone from when you're 16. I just feel like that's unhealthy and you should be able to figure that out. Maybe I'm not being nice enough to her, but that just kind of gave me the ick. It didn't really feel the most realistic to me. I didn't really relate a lot to that. So I am just finishing the book because I want to see what happens. But yeah, I think I have probably 10 pages left, so I should be able to finish that tonight. What else have I been up to? I finished watching Sneaky Links on Netflix. I don't know if I talked about that before, but it's basically a show where people who are having sneaky links show up to a motel, and then their sneaky link comes and they see if they're able to have a relationship with that person or form a new relationship with someone else in the motel. that was pretty interesting to watch. Now I'm watching Total Drama Island in French. If I've talked about it before, I'm not sure if I did, but that's one of my favorite ways to learn languages is to watch Total Drama in different languages, because Netflix has a bunch of languages for that show. So I'm watching that for like the 800th time, but it's so funny. I die laughing every single time. So I'm really enjoying that. I've been trying to get back into watching YouTube. I was just so busy all summer that I didn't get a lot of time to watch YouTube, so I'm getting back into my favorites like Tori DeSimone, Abby Aslane, Carter Sullivan. Those are like 3 I can name off the top of my head. I can't think of anyone else right now. And I think that's all the updates that I have for right now, so let's get right into these intro segments. This is season 1, episode 22. I can't believe we made it that far. I say this every single episode, but time just flies by. And the quote for today's episode is, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step," by Lao Tzu. And I think we've all heard this quote or some version of this quote over and over again, but it's because it's true. And something like college can feel so daunting when you start. I definitely relate to that with just starting medical school. It feels like it's so long and it's going to be so much work, but the only way through it is through it. So just beginning with that first step is already starting on your journey. My pedal moment is that I have been making new friends recently. That's something that I was really looking forward to this year. And then my pivot moment is that my sleep schedule is off. I say this in almost every single episode, but I swear I'm working on it. I just really want to get into a consistent sleep routine so that I can feel good, because I know that sleep is very, very important for my mental health. And once I get my sleep together, I know that I would just feel so much more capable of everything that I want to do. Getting into the prompts from last episode. First one was, what emotion comes to mind when you think about food? For me, it's happiness, because I really enjoy eating. I especially enjoy eating when I eat with other people, when I make my own recipes, all of that. I just enjoy the whole process around eating. 2, how would you describe your relationship with food? I would say that I have a pretty good relationship with food. I am thankful that I haven't struggled with any eating disorders or anything, but I do have a sweet tooth, so I can overindulge in sweets sometimes, but I feel like that I have a pretty good management around that. And the last prompt was, what are your nutrition related goals, if any? I recently got recommended to start the Mediterranean diet, so I want to follow that a little bit better. It shouldn't be that difficult for me to follow, because it's basically how I eat already, but just limiting more red meat. And I just want to increase my protein, because I know that's very important for building muscle and for recovery, and I have a couple injuries that I'm dealing with right now, and so I know that increasing my protein content will be helpful for that. That's everything that I have for the intro segment, so let's get into the main part of today's episode. College can be very intimidating because it's a different level of intensity than you experience in high school, especially depending on what your degree is. I was a neuroscience major with minors in psychology and pharmacy, and I was also on the pre-med track, so I had some very, very intense classes. Organic chemistry specifically was so challenging, calculus, all of that. So it's just a different level of intensity than high school. You have a lot more independence, you're living on your own, you're starting to make new friends, your core group of friends are no longer around you all the time. You could be all around the globe or all around the country. So it's a very difficult adjustment, and I think that episodes like this are very helpful. I used to watch a ton of these when I was starting college, and now that I'm starting medical school, I watch a ton of these videos as well, because I just think it's really helpful to understand how different people approach these situations so that you can create your own perspective. First thing I wanted to talk about is study tips. The Pomodoro method is one of my favorite methods to use for studying, because I do have ADHD, and so knowing that there's a finite amount of time that I have to focus for helps me to get started on the task, and knowing that I have a break, and I use either 25-5 or I do 50-10, and knowing that I have a break in a certain amount of time is really helpful for me to get started on the task, because I can tend to delay. But if I know I just have to work for 25 minutes, and then eventually you get into a flow state and it's a lot easier to focus. And there's also been studies to show that your brain isn't able to focus very well for a long period of time anyway, so this method is science-backed. If I remember, I'll try to link some resources to show the science about the Pomodoro method in the description box below. The second thing that I like to incorporate into studying is spaced repetition. So there have also been studies to show that when you practice material at certain intervals of time, it actually strengthens your memory because it allows you to recall it right when you're about to forget it. So then your brain remembers that's important, so it strengthens that pathway so that you're able to remember that information better. This is very important for remembering things long term, which is definitely important to someone like me who's working in medicine. And while I don't need to understand all these concepts in great detail forever, it's important for me to have this knowledge for treating future patients in 10, 15, 20 years. One of my favorite things for spaced repetition is Anki or flashcards in general. I specifically like Anki. That's something that a lot of medical students use, but there's several different ways to do this. You could use a past tracker, you could use regular flashcards or Quizlet. Even if you take notes, you can make a study schedule for when you're going to review it, and that's still spaced repetition. Going right along with that is active recall. So instead of passively reading my notes or highlighting it, writing the topic at the top of a page and recalling a certain metabolic pathway. That's what comes to mind because that's what I was doing all weekend preparing for my biochemistry exam. Or another way to do this study tip would be to teach someone about a specific topic that you learned in school, or going through your learning objectives and writing down what you know about that objective. That is a really good way to make sure that you're actually remembering the information and you're actively interacting with it instead of just passively absorbing it, because it's so much harder to learn information that way. Going right along with that, I also like practice questions. They're a great tool to practice active recall, and also practice questions are effective because it shows you how material is going to be presented in a test-like format if you have a test-based class that you're working with. And that's really important because your grades come from your tests, and then also when you're applying that information, practice questions are a great way to make sure that you're understanding the material in context, not just in solidarity. The last study tip that I wanted to share is AI. I am jumping on the AI bandwagon because everyone's using it, so I don't want to be behind. One of my favorites specifically for medical school is NeuroConsult. It's a newer website, but I truly appreciate it, and whoever came up with it is a genius because basically I can upload my lecture notes and it will summarize them for me. It can make flashcards for me. It can make practice questions directly from that. So it's definitely useful. You don't have to have NeuroConsult specifically. You could use ChatGPT to do the similar things. I just like that NeuroConsult has it all in one, and I'm sure there's several other AI methods out there that you can use for studying, but those are my favorites. I don't use AI to do stuff for me. I just use it to simplify tasks because technically, yes, I could sit there and write out practice questions, or I could summarize my slides myself, but that takes up a lot more time. And so I really like to use AI to help me study more efficiently because, as so many people have said, it's important to work smarter, not harder. The next section that I wanted to talk about is organization. My calendar is my best friend. I have a physical calendar where I write out when all my exams are so that I can visually see, okay, when is my next exam? If I want to plan to do something with my friends, like I know, okay, this weekend I'm not free because I have an exam coming up. I use Google Calendar a lot as well because I have a lot going on between the podcast, school, Next Gen Med, which is my organization that I have with my best friend, regular life activities, doctor's appointments, therapy, all of that. And it's hard to keep that all in my head. So having a Google Planner to see what I have when is just so useful. I also like using a planner. I have a digital planner that I use in GoodNotes. I can link it down below if I remember where I got it from. I also use Notion a lot. So I use my Google Calendar for events that are happening. And then I'll use Notion to plan out my week. So to see what tasks I want to do every day. And then I use my digital planner to plan out my days specifically. I'll time block through that. I can actually do a video of planning with me to show you how I use all these methods together. But that's been the system that works really well for me. Some people like physical planners, some people only plan daily, some people would do like brain dumps. It really depends on what works for you, but the digital calendar and monthly, weekly, and daily planning is what works for me specifically. I think another important thing that not a lot of people talk about with organization is knowing your energy levels. For me, I am more of a night owl, unfortunately. I only say unfortunately because I feel like society is built for morning people. So for me, I'm not going to plan a workout first thing in the morning because I know my energy levels are not high, and that's not going to be the time when I can perform my best. I'm also not going to have the first thing that I do in the day be watching a lecture because I know that my energy levels aren't high, so I'm not going to be able to pay that much attention to it. At the same time, I'm not going to plan to watch a lecture at 10 o'clock at night because I know that it's not going to work for me either. So knowing when your peak energies are, when's the best time to do certain tasks is really important, and it can help you to maximize your productivity and efficiency. Because if you're watching, for my example specifically, if I watch a lecture at 8 o'clock in the morning, it might take me 2 hours to watch instead of 1 hour because I'm pausing, I'm not able to pay attention, I'm not retaining much information. But if I watch it at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm able to watch it in an hour because I'm actually paying attention and everything's making sense. So that helps me to maximize my time so that I have time to do other things. Meal planning has also been life-changing. For me, I have a really hard time making decisions, so knowing ahead of time this is what I'm eating and when, and it's not super strict, like things can change. I also don't necessarily meal prep. I meal prep my breakfast and lunch, but I cook dinners on Monday and Tuesday nights, and then I just eat leftovers throughout the week. But that's what works for me because that just limits the amount of decisions that I have to make. And I talked about decision fatigue in a previous episode. I think it was my habits episode, which I can link down below. But the beauty of habits is that it limits the amount of decisions that you have to make every day. So then when you're making important decisions, you have more brain capacity to do so. And so meal planning is a way that I reduce that decision fatigue. So when 8 o'clock comes, I'm not like, oh my gosh, what am I going to eat? Then I have to think about it, order it. And then by next thing we know, it's 10 o'clock. Versus if I know exactly what I'm going to eat, as soon as I'm hungry, it's ready to eat. Or I plan time for when I'm going to cook it. And that just simplifies my life so much. The next topic that I wanted to talk about is friendships. Making friends in college can be very difficult because you're in a new environment of people. Some people may seem like they have their friendship groups already, and it could be hard to figure out where to fit in. The first tip that I would have is to go to events alone. College campuses have so many events all the time. So if there's an event that interests you, just go by yourself. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be the only person who's there by yourself, and it's a guaranteed way to meet people who have similar interests to you, so then you can already have something to start the conversation from. I would also recommend starting conversations with someone new, so when you go to those events, don't just be isolated by yourself, but start conversations with someone. A lot of times if they're towards the beginning of the school year, they'll have icebreaker events anyway, but just introduce yourself to people. I know that can be nerve-wracking, but it's really how friendships begin. Another tip would be, once you make one friend, try to make conversation with their friends as well, because 9 times out of 10, if you have a common friend, you have a common interest, so it gives you somewhere to start. And then also, those people are kind of screened in a way, so you know that they're safe people, for lack of a better word. So you know that they're safe and they're probably nice because they're friends with your friend. So it just is a way to expand your friendship circle. I would also recommend trying something new. For example, for me, I tried gymnastics when I was in college, and that was the way that I made a lot of my friends when I was at Ohio State. And college has so many, especially if you go to a big school like Ohio State, there's so many opportunities to try different things, and you can meet your best friend doing that. That's how I met my roommate and some of my closest friends as well, because now we have a common interest and we're all trying something new, we're all working towards something together. I would also recommend, when you are talking to people, to share things that interest you. So it's important to have hobbies. So if you like to read, if you like to watch TV, maybe you're a big reality TV person, maybe you knit, maybe you paint, maybe you garden. Those are things that can allow you to connect with people on a deeper level than talking about surface level things like the weather or how was class. And it also helps you to stand out to people because you're not talking about the same things as everyone else. The next section that I wanted to get into is self-care. It can be a lot to manage classes, making new friends, taking care of yourself and all of that, but self-care really, 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 really is important, and it's the key to success in all the different ways. First of all, prioritize your sleep. I know that I struggle with my sleep, but it's important to have a good sleep routine. I will be sharing a night routine on TikTok and Instagram to go with this episode, but having a good sleep routine is important because sleep is a foundation of everything else. Second is to exercise. Exercise releases endorphins, and it also is a way to show yourself love because you're taking care of your body, and your body is your home forever. It also can be a way to connect with people. It can be a way to decompress because you're not focusing on your studies for that moment. You're giving time to yourself. It could also be a time to reset and reflect. And exercise doesn't have to be something super intense or super long. It could be a 10-minute stretching session in your bedroom. It doesn't have to be anything too crazy. I also want to remind us about hydration. A lot of alcohol can be consumed during college, but it's important to drink water. Water is so important. I talked about this in my last episode about nutrition, but so much of your body is made of water, and it's essential for so many metabolic processes that if you're not drinking water, you're harming your body. So you don't have to immediately start off with drinking a gallon of water every day. That's crazy. If you're not drinking any water right now, try to start with just 1 cup and then gradually increase it as time goes on. I also wanted to talk about decompression. It can be tempting to just go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, because there is so much going on in college, but it's important to take that time to just reset, reflect, and just take time to acknowledge what's going on and acknowledge what's gonna happen in the future. It doesn't have to be some big 30-minute meditation. It can be just after you get home from class, taking 10 minutes to just clean up, unpack your bag, or watch a YouTube video to just help you transition from point 1 to point 2. It's an important part of routines because it helps your body to signal like what's coming next. This is also an important part of your night routine because decompression is an important part to transition from the active part of your day to the restful part of your day. The last thing that I want to talk about for self-care is clean space, clean mind. We have all heard this 100 times, but it's especially if you have some neurodivergence like anxiety or depression or ADHD or anything else, your mind has a greater impact on your space, has a greater impact on your mind than you would think. So just taking 5 minutes every day to make sure that things are put away is so helpful. It also is more practical because if things are put away, it's easier to find things, so then you're more efficient going forward, but it really does have a huge impact on your mental health. Getting into routines, I know that not everybody is big on routines, but they are so, so important. Having a morning routine, even if it's something as small as wake up, wash your face, brush your teeth, drink a cup of water, get dressed, it helps your mind to signal what's coming next, and it just helps with those transitions. It's a signaling point to show your brain what's going on, and our brains love routines. Our brains love signaling because it helps you to prepare for what's coming next. I talked about night routine a little bit already. It doesn't have to be some complex routine, and I want to stress that because some people's routines can be completely overwhelming. Like some people have a 3-hour morning routine. We don't have time for that. A lot of times in college, you're tired, you have a lot going on, you don't have time for all of that, but just setting those intentions to help your body know, okay, now it's time to be productive, now it's time to go to sleep, now it's time for this. It just helps your day to be more balanced, and it helps you to feel more in control as well. A study routine is definitely important. I would say to try and have a dedicated study space, whatever that looks like. If it's a desk, if it's a table that you sit at, I really prioritize this. I cannot function without having a desk for the most part. I have a double monitor set up. I have an ergonomic chair. I also have a standing desk set up that I like to use my walking pad, but you don't need anything too crazy. You don't need anything too expensive. Just have a dedicated study spot because, again, your brain loves these signals and it can help you to get into focus mode so much easier. I kind of mentioned earlier that I really need a weekly reset. It helps me to know what I'm looking forward to the week ahead, so that if spontaneous plans come up, I know what's going on so I can shift things around. It also helps to ease my anxiety because I know that there's a time and place for everything to get done. And I just love my weekly reset. You don't have to do what everyone does on TikTok. You don't have to deep clean your house and go grocery shopping and meal prep and meditate and do some exercise and see your friends. That's too much. It can be something as simple as sitting down and writing down one thing that you want to do every day, or writing down when your assignment to do. All of those things are important because it helps you to be more efficient and productive and not to miss things. The last thing that I wanted to talk about in regards to routines is having an exam preparation routine. For me, for example, I like to do a lot of practice questions, try to get through my Anki cards, and just try to make sure that I review everything. In college, a lot of times what I would do is I would make a study plan. So I write out the date of the exam and then write what material I'm going to review on what days, which just helps me to not cram, because cramming is not helpful. You need sleep before your exam. And having a plan just helps me to be less anxious and know that everything will get done. The last thing that I wanted to touch on in this episode, which is a little bit different, is finding your purpose. Because in addition to college being about getting your education, you are transitioning from an adolescent to an adult. And that can be a very difficult time to go through. And you're trying to quote unquote find yourself, and there's so many changes that occur, and you're the most independent you've ever been, and now you're an adult. So finding your purpose can be something that's really confusing. A lot of people change their majors a million times or question what they want to do with their life going forward. And finding your purpose, I feel like, is a lifelong process, but these are just some questions and practices that have helped me to realize what's important to me and what I value. The first thing is to think about what you're good at. Are you good at talking to people? Are you good at math? Are you good at organization? Are you good at art? Are you good at reading? What things are you good at? And then in addition to that, what do you like to do? You could be good at math, but you could hate it. And so I think that a big part of finding your purpose is figuring out what falls into both of those categories. What are you good at and what do you like to do? And then you can kind of create your life from there. For me, I am good at learning information, and I like talking to people, and I like helping people. So healthcare is a career that blends both of those things for me. And so that's how I found healthcare to be part of my passion. And I did talk about this in one of my first episodes, which was about a value assessment, which is something that you can take. I'll link one in the description as well. But kind of going through that process, but also not being too hard on yourself during that process, I think is a part of college that not a lot of people talk about. Before I leave you guys, you know I always have journal prompts. Number 1, how would your friends describe you? 2, what hobbies do you have? And 3, when are you the most productive? I think that those journal prompts, I don't normally talk about the journal prompts, I normally just list them out. But I think that those journal prompts are really important for this episode because it can help you to describe yourself to other people and have you realize what your interests are so that you can make friendships based off of that. And then it can also help you to begin to tap into that organization method that I talked about of planning your time accordingly. But that is all that I have for you guys today. I hope that this episode was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. And if you could also comment what your favorite subject in school is or was, that would be really helpful. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Bye.